I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, and welcome to Augie's Worldwide for another episode of Ask Dave. This is where we answer questions from viewers. You can submit a question to hamradioanswers@gmail.com or go to www.dkassler.com/ and put in ask-dave, and you'll get taken to a form where you can put a question in too. They both go to the same place. They go to Trevor here, who is, for the summer, our Ask Dave editor. So, what do we have here?
All right. Leslie, call sign V87RN, has a question regarding her internal and external tuner on a Yaesu FTDX 1200.
The FTDX 1200 is a popular radio, and the people that I've spoken with who have them really like them. Now, the way this works, you don't use the internal tuner and the external tuner at the same time. Use one or the other, but not both, okay? So the internal tuner will only tune out an SWR of up to about 3 to 1, whereas the external tuners usually tune out up to an SWR of 10 to 1. And this is how it works. You've got your, inside the radio, you've got the radio transmitter and a tuner. And between the two, there's an SWR meter, which you can see on the front panel. This goes outside to another tuner, and there's an SWR meter here too. Now, if you do not use either tuner, the SWR should look about the same on both meters. But if I use the internal tuner, okay, the SWR meter is going to see what the tuner does, which is bring it into tune. So it'll show good. This tuner will have worked. The SWR here will show the bad SWR looking straight at the antenna, okay? Now, if you use the external tuner and turn the internal tuner off, but leave both SWR on, then this will show a good SWR, and the other meter inside here should be approximately the same as that. But if you're using the internal tuner, the external SWR meter will read the actual SWR of the antenna, which could be quite bad. Okay, hope that helps.
All right. Craig, call sign KK6FFZ, has a question about how he can increase his coverage.
Okay, he's talking about the best, is there a way to find out areas that have weak APRS coverage? I don't know very much about APRS. Now, as far as putting in the internet gateways, digipeaters, and so on, and how to oversaturate the network, I don't know. Best to find out who owns repeaters and stuff in your area and call them and find out what they do and ask them if there's anything you can do to contribute to coverage. I did that once and was asked to just leave my radio on as a digipeater to help with coverage down here in this area. I haven't done that in quite some time. APRS hasn't changed a bit. But, you know, up in our mountains here, we have very poor coverage because there's a lot of stuff down in canyons. But, yeah, go contact, like there's a fellow by the name of John here locally who does all the APRS repeaters, and, you know, find whoever does that in your area and contact them.
All right. Bill, call sign KC1JTZ, is wondering about software programs for a paddle.
He has Parkinson's and tremors in both hands. It's enough to mess with using a paddle. Are there software problems he can use instead of the paddle? Yes. If you look at programs like FL Digi, Ham Radio Deluxe, and others like that, some of them will allow you to send Morse code from a keyboard. Even if you're only in Hunt and Peck Typer, you can stay up with the CW going out of one of those. Try those to see if they work. I know on my 10 Tech, one of the most recent mods several years ago allowed a keyboard to be plugged into the back of it, and then you could send code right straight into the radio, which worked very nicely too. So there are options where you can use a keyboard instead of the paddle. Now, I realize that the shakiness might create problems with the keyboard. If you get a good keyboard, full-size keyboard, of course, you can try one of the Microsoft split keyboards, because that puts the buttons a little further apart so you don't hit more than one at once. But that's something to try.
Robert asks about receiving on an MFG 901B.
Well, the MFJ 901B is actually an antenna tuner rather than a radio. And he wants to know, he says he thinks he's figured out how to set the antenna for transmitting, but how does he set it for receive? Well, the answer is if you have it set for transmit, you're set for receive. Now, if you're just receiving, if you're just tuning around and listening, or listening to shortwave broadcasts or whatever, you tune the 3 knobs for maximum noise. I would suggest starting with the one in the middle, which is the coil. Okay, that's the added inductance. Turn that, and you'll hear a very definite peak with 1 or 2 of those will provide max noise. And then twiddle with the 2 knobs on the other side. Turn one for max noise, turn the other. They will interact with each other, so you can turn them back and forth. And that's the best way to receive. Tune for the maximum noise or maximum signal. There's no magic beyond that. SWR is not so important on receive in most cases, because if the signal is attenuated slightly in the antenna, it attenuates the noise too. You just turn up the volume control knob a little bit and hear what you want to hearify, what you want to hear, not clarify. All right.
Rick asks about band activity.
When tuning around single sideband at home with a radio that he has, it's a C. Crane Skywave single sideband radio. It is a shortwave listener's receiver, okay? And he's saying he could pick up a little bit at home, but he was in a Walmart parking lot, which is about 100 feet higher in elevation, and he was able to pick up about 20 hams on single sideband. There's a couple things going on here. First of all, the band comes and goes. Obviously, it had gone when he was at home, and it came when he was up at Walmart, because otherwise he would have heard those stations. But height helps. The higher you are, if you go up to a mountaintop with that same radio, you'll get a lot more than you will get down in the valley. Is he out of luck trying to listen from home? No. I would try a longer antenna maybe. You just take a piece of wire, attach it to the whip antenna on that radio, and throw it out over the couch or something like that. Just get a longer wire, or do this outside. These shortwave radios sometimes will saturate if you get too long a wire on them. They're not designed for a really long wire. So, are you out of luck listening from home? No, but just recognize that the bands are awful these days. You're going to hear most of your hams on 20 meters, 40 meters, and 80 meters. Okay?
All right. Phil, call sign WB and FFG, wants to know how to reset and has some audio problems on the Baofeng DMR RD5R.
Well, I'm sorry about the issues. I was given an RD5R to test by Radioddity. Now, this is an interesting radio. It's a Baofeng, however, it's made by Baofeng for Radioddity to sell, and it's Radioddity that supports it. So, and he says he did work with Radioddity tech support. They did refund the purchase price and hoped that new firmware would fix the issue. It's out, it's not fixed. So he is looking for some hints on that. I am sorry about the issues. Work with Radioddity. Sounds like you got your money back on that one. When I tested the RD5R, it worked great. So there may be manufacturing quality control, or maybe they issued a firmware change since I tested it that actually took it backwards. That can happen. So persevere, hang in there. You'll find a good DMR radio for you. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us to listen to these viewer-submitted questions. You too can submit a question at www.dcasler.com/ask-dave. And you can also send it to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. I look forward to more questions. Please check out the support page at dcasler.com/support. That's where the tip jar lives. And look for ways to make this a viewer-supported channel. I also have a link to Patreon in there if you'd rather do that. So thanks so much for your support. It's great to work with Augies. They're the best people on earth. And we'll catch you next time. Until then, 73.